that's when my body took over. It felt like I was puking and peeing at the same time. It was the most weirdest experience of my life. My body would uncontrollably shake. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. Today's video is going to be a very long overdue birth story and meet my baby. Time is going so fast. If you guys follow me over on Instagram, you would already have seen her introductions, real-time updates, that very first week postpartum and newborn life, and just general updates as well with our journey. This is little Miss Amelia. She is currently 1 month and 1 day old. So she was born on Thursday the 16th of December. I was 38 weeks pregnant. So she was 2 weeks early. Her due date was actually the 30th of December. Honestly, you guys, it's absolutely crazy. I feel like I only gave birth just yesterday. I cannot believe it has already been a whole entire month already. She has grown so much. I was actually planning on doing a birth vlog, and I did film a couple of clips at the start of waters breaking, having contractions, heading to the hospital. However, due to the circumstances and the events that unfolded during the day, I wasn't actually able to continue filming, so I didn't actually have a vlog available. So I thought instead I would do a little sit down and basically share my experience and share the day, share probably one of the worst / best days of my whole entire life. Let me tell you, everything that could have gone wrong definitely went wrong, and to actually be sat here and sharing my story, I am just forever grateful and incredibly lucky to do so. So that's what I wanted to do in today's video, just share my birth story, our experiences, and everything that happened on the day. It was 4 AM when my waters broke. I was in bed and I felt like I needed to get up to go and pee, but as I was getting up, it was sort of like this massive gush of water just, yeah, spilling absolutely everywhere, and it did not stop. It basically just continued. I didn't want to wake anybody up at the time because I just thought, nothing's happening yet. I've obviously not getting any contractions. It's literally just my waters breaking, so just hold your horses, just ride it out. So I took myself downstairs, and honestly, you guys, it was sort of like a blur of running backwards and forwards to the toilet to change pads and to change pants, because I was literally just practically wetting myself with my waters, and it would not stop. And then it got to around 4:30 when I believe contractions started. When it got to about 5 o'clock, I rang the hospital. I just said, look, my waters have broken, I'm contracting, what do I do now? Because obviously I didn't know what to do, I didn't know who to contact. I just sort of picked a number that was on my maternity notes, and I just hoped for the best, you know? So basically they asked me if I could come in for 7 AM because they were very busy. Like, that's bizarre to me, a hospital telling you, no, you can't come in, I know you're in labour, but can you come back at a different time? So basically that's the time when I woke up Phil, and I just said, my waters are breaking and I'm contracting, I think I'm in labour. We got to the hospital at about 6:30, I believe, and I sort of rang them and I just said, look, I'm here now because I cannot wait any longer. And she told me, she was like, okay, I'll just ring round, I'll see if there's a room available, I'll ring you back in a couple minutes. A couple minutes passed, there's me just waiting outside, contracting. I need to hold off there because a lot more happened before that. Basically, on the way to the hospital, not only was I contracting, but also I was about 5 minutes away from the hospital when all of a sudden I just projectile vomited everywhere. And at the same time, because of obviously pressure, my waters, like more of my waters broke, so it felt like I was puking and peeing at the same time. So You can imagine waiting that few minutes outside the hospital was not the most glamorous, because I was contracting, I was covered in vomit, I was covered in waters, and it was just not ideal. Like, honestly, it just I felt gross already, and labour hadn't even started. We got into the room, I changed into a gown, we did all of the initial checks, I believe, so like blood pressure, COVID tests, and they examined me and they found out that I was 4 centimetres dilated. The first thing they started me on was gas and air. Let me tell you, gas and air is absolutely disgusting. I felt nauseous straight away. I did sort of try it again and again, and it did get a lot better. It definitely makes you feel like you're totally drunk and out of it. But I also requested an epidural. Had all of these tests. In the meantime, I was using the gas and air. And then finally had the epidural, and I remember her saying to me like, oh, that was really, really easy getting it in. Like, I've never had it so easy before. Obviously, I don't know what that means. With an epidural, they check you every 2 hours to see how far dilated you are. And I think, honestly, from here on out, it sort of went downhill. So I started having all of these problems that sort of presented themselves during labour and even continued after labour. Preeclampsia got flagged up, which never got flagged up during my pregnancy at all. It's just something that got flagged up there and then. And also my blood pressure kept on getting flagged up. They definitely had to triple check it all the time. Like, I was constantly being checked for my blood pressure, and because of this, constantly had 2 people in the room. And yeah, so I think all I remember is them just checking me every 2 hours to see how dilated I was. And it started off well. Like, it started off that I was on track. As time went by, my body was becoming hypertensive, which I believe is my blood pressure just honestly going through the roof. So my body was going into complete shock, and every time someone entered the room, like someone new, or every time someone would explain something to me, my body would uncontrollably shake. Honestly, I had no control over my body whatsoever, and I was getting hot and sweaty, and it was all just a big mess. And of course, the throwing up did not stop in the car. Occasionally, I would also throw up. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, is this from the epidural or is this from labour itself? Like, am I in that much shock that I'm completely shaking and throwing up all the time because my body just can't deal with giving birth? I think it got to about 8 p.m. and I was 10 centimetres, which was absolutely incredible, because I remember when they checked me at 6, I wasn't progressing as much, and they said if I get to 8 p.m. and I wasn't 10 centimetres, then they would have to look at other options. But it got to 8 p.m, I was 10 centimetres. However, when you're 10 centimetres, they don't allow you to push straight away. That's what I was told anyway. I got told I had to wait 1 more hour before I was allowed to actively push, purely just because you had to wait until baby was in the correct position, I guess, even though she was already in the correct position. I don't know. So yeah, we waited until 9 until I was pushing, and honestly, you guys, it got to the point where I was pushing and I could not feel a thing. Like, yeah, just could not feel anything. And I was told that they give you around 1 to 2 hours of actively pushing before, again, they would have to intervene and assist. As well as during all this, they were constantly checking my blood pressure, and I believe they also were checking on her as well. However, they couldn't get a proper reading as to how she was doing. So I don't know what the device is called, but they had to sort of stick something on her head so they could just sort of check her breathing, check what her heart rate was, I believe, and just double check that she was okay. So it got to around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and they said that she was in distress, so someone was coming along, a consultant, in order to go through the options with me. While we were waiting for the consultant, the midwife sort of explained to me, she sort of said, basically there are a couple of options. The first option was like a vacuum, stick it onto the baby's head, vacuum her out. The second option was forceps. The third option would be an emergency C-section. However, when the consultant came in the room. He sort of looked at all the notes, he just looked at all the stats. I feel like he was talking to me while shoving a piece of paper in my hand to sort of sign my life away. He didn't mention the vacuum at all. He basically just said, you are going to need forceps, and if that doesn't work out, then you will need to have an emergency C-section. And because of that, usually they do forceps in the room that you're labouring in. However, he said that I would have to go to theatre. So all I know with forceps is I believe they're only allowed 3 tries before you end up having an emergency C-section. So I didn't know what to do at the time. I just kept looking at Phil and freaking out. I think this is when I constantly started shaking. Like, honestly, my body would just not rest at all. I didn't know what to do because forceps was definitely on my list of a no-go. It got to the point where I just had to go along with what they were telling me. You know, they were the experts, they knew best. I couldn't not say no. You know, she was in distress. I didn't want to put her under any more like stress, so I just signed my life away. I just said okay, and yeah, we went into theatre. And honestly, like, if you know me, you know I get overwhelmed very easily. I went into theatre and I just remember all of these people. There were so many people in this room, and honestly it freaked me out. Once I was transferred from one bed to the other, which FYI is a weird experience to go through, someone just carrying you from one bed to the other, that's when everyone started poking me and prodding me and touching me straight away. And it wasn't just one area, everyone was literally like, I feel like there was 3 people on this arm, 3 people on that arm, a couple people down below, a couple people near my head to sort of, you know, explain things to me, what was happening. And I just didn't know where to focus. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what was happening. I think something was to do with my blood pressure. Something was being put in me if I needed any drugs. Like, honestly, you guys, I don't even know what was happening because everything was happening at the same time. Once everything had set up, obviously I was put under anaesthetic as well as the epidural, and every now and again I remember them spraying this mist onto me, and they would sort of do it like near the belly, the thighs, and then they would go up to like here, and they said like, let me know when it gets freezing cold. Like, some of it was like hot down there, of course you can't feel anything, you're numb, and they want it to be warm, whereas as soon as it gets cold, that's when they worry. And they needed it to be sort of like up here, so they basically made sure that I was completely numb and I couldn't feel a thing. And yeah, so that's when they started with the forceps. Honestly, I cannot remember what happened. All I remember in my mind is, come on, you can do this. They only have 3 tries, so you're just gonna have to work with this. Your body can do it. You know, when it comes to the forceps and then pushing, they wait until you have a contraction, which I had to be told that I was having, because I think whilst I was labouring in the room, they basically turned around and they said, I think the epidural has worked a little bit too well, because you cannot honestly feel a thing. You can't even feel any sort of sensation down there. You can't feel anything. We're having to tell you when you're contracting, which I thought was a normal thing. But anyway, yeah, so whilst I was in theatre, they had to tell me when I was contracting, so I had to push, and at the same time the forceps happened, and it was the most weirdest experience of my life. All I remember was shouting, I'm falling off the bed, you are pulling me off the bed. I felt like I couldn't grab onto anything because my arms were hooked up to all sorts, and honestly, I just felt like I was slipping off the bed because he was like pulling so freaking hard. So those first set of contractions ended and I freaked out because I said, oh my god, I've only got 2 tries left. I remember just asking them like, is it working? Is she coming out? But they confirmed that her head was out and if I wanted to feel her head. And all I remember saying is, oh no, that's gross. Yeah, okay then. And yeah, so I touched her head, which was absolutely gross. It was like hard jelly. And so I just thought to myself, oh my god, it's working. I don't need a C-section. The next set of contractions happened and yeah, she came out and all of a sudden they just plonked her on me, and I just felt this really strange feeling of like, who is this baby? Yeah, who is this person? Like, what the hell is happening? That's when my body took over. Again, I was constantly shaking, like no gaps in between. I felt cold, and I kept throwing up to the point where I knew something was wrong, and I wasn't comfortable with holding her. So I just remember telling them, you need to take her because I'm gonna let her go. I have no energy and I'm gonna drop her. And I constantly remember people asking me how I was doing, constantly talking to me, trying to keep me awake, and just because my body honestly just went into complete overdrive of shock and severe tiredness. And I just remember closing my eyes, and you know, that's when everyone, I don't want to say everyone started panicking around me, but that's when everyone, like, I felt like everything upped in the room. I just felt like this sense of change in atmosphere, and I had the midwife come and tell me that I was losing a lot of blood. And I don't really remember exact events of what happened, but I was severely hemorrhaging, and they were telling me that I needed a blood transfusion. I think I remember the guys sort of talking, so the guys that needed to do the blood transfusion was telling the guy that was sewing me up at the time, you know, we need to do this blood transfusion now. But the guy that was sewing me up said, I am not rushing this. So I felt as if, like, obviously they couldn't do one without the other until the other one had finished. And yeah, they were basically just saying, she is losing a lot of blood, we need to do this blood transfusion now. And all I remember is like people still constantly, you know, messing around with my arms and doing loads of things and checking everything. And then I had people come and talk to me and calm me down, because I was so out of it. My body was constantly shaking, I was throwing up, I felt really tired. I kept on like closing my eyes. I don't even remember, but at this time that's when they sort of ushered Phil and Amelia out of the room and into the room next door. Like, honestly, I can't imagine what went through Phil's mind at the time, because obviously they only throw you out if something bad is going to happen. I had the blood transfusion, I got all sewn up, and I was wheeled into the next door to join my little family, to join Phil. But of course at this time I was still having the shakes. They didn't go away, but I think it was I think it got back to the point where, like, I was shaking, I'd have a little rest and then I was shaking. So in my eyes that was sort of like a little improvement. So basically that is all I remember of the birth story and experience. The damage that I had sort of, you know, experienced, as well as, you know, the severe hemorrhaging and the blood loss and the blood transfusion. Did then go on to suffer with 3rd degree tears. I also had a cut, can't remember what it's called. And then I also suffered with internal and external tears in my buttocks, which is classed as a 3B. There's like a 3A, 3B, 3C as what they class it as, so take that as you will. In the middle, it's not bad, it's not good, and had limited functionality down there. And then I will mention this in more detail in my week postpartum update, but for the problems that I continue to experience is, again, preeclampsia, my blood pressure, being anemic, blood clots, kidney problems, and I think I also had a touch of sepsis as well. I do remember reading that in my notes. Yeah, so there was quite a lot to digest. There was a lot. One of the most, I guess, updates that I received, I think they literally told me this the day after. For future pregnancies, I was told that I am definitely likely not able to have a natural birth. But if I ever get pregnant again, as you know, my journey has been a hit and miss. It took us 2 years to conceive. So if my body is actually able to get pregnant again, I would be over the moon. Not that I'm thinking about that at this moment in time, definitely not. But I was told that if I were to have another baby, then my only option is to have a C-section because of the damage that was caused. So that is my birth story in a nutshell. It wasn't the most positive birth story that I could have wished for. Yeah, it definitely could have taken a very different path, but again, I am ever so grateful, incredibly lucky to actually be sat here. I'm sure there are a lot more details that I have missed out. There is definitely going to be more details in my next update. I hope you've liked this video. I know it's not the most nicest things to hear, and yeah, excited to finally introduce little Miss Squish because it has been a very long overdue video. Do comment down below if you have any questions. I would absolutely love to answer them, maybe in an upcoming video, maybe in my week and monthly updates. Thanks again so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully shortly in a brand new video. You going to say bye?